This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi there, it's Martin from the Accelerator team, and I'm here with Ross Tomkins from Alphagenics. Hi Ross, thanks for joining us first of all.
Thanks Martin.
So you've got a healthcare background, but we're not here to talk about healthcare, we're here to talk about acquisitions and adventures on the acquisition trail.
Absolutely.
Do you want to just give us a little brief intro to who you are, what you do, and then, how we got you?
I go from there, yeah. So my name's Ross, as you know. I'm a physiotherapist by background. Due to some changes within our business several years ago, we found ourselves in the M&A world and in the world of acquisition. And over the last 3 years, we've acquired 8 other businesses so far.
So merger and acquisitions.
Mergers and acquisitions.
We don't know who's listening. We'll assume basic level. So, and people might think, well, why would someone like you buy a business? And I suppose, is it worth kind of starting there? Well, why did you buy something rather than just grow, advertise? What led you to think, well, I need to buy something?
It was growth, basically. I've started companies before, and it's hard work. It takes a long time. You've got to get your message out, build the community, and actually acquisition, we saw that was a much faster route to growth.
So if you need to do a new service line, you need to be in a new location, and you're not getting there through the normal channels, growth is that what led you there? You thought, well, we do this, we want to do this, or you want to just do more of the same thing? What was it?
So that's a really great question, actually.
I'm well known for it.
Good questions. So what happened with us was we were growing quite nicely. We were up to 30 physios. This was
which is already a good size.
Yeah, we were doing okay. We had contracts all over the UK. This was back in 2017, and we lost our largest client, which accounted for around 70% of our work.
Wow, right.
Now, running up to that, of course, I knew as the owner it wasn't sensible to have all of our eggs in one basket, but of course you're not going to say no when a client...
When you're in it,
exactly.
It's hard to...
Yeah, they say, can you do more? Well, the obvious answer is yes, not no. That's too much.
I'd rather not, thank you, because then where do you draw the line? Is 30% too much?
Exactly, and also will they say...
creeping up to 70% quite easy.
And will they say, well, if you can't do more, we'll just get someone else anyway?
We need one provider for the lot. Yeah.
Exactly, so that happened. They said, we're paying you too much money and we're going to do it ourselves. And of course...
Oh, so they in-housed?
They in-housed it. Which of course was a great business decision on their behalf. There was no hard feelings at all.
That's not it's nobody's fault. It's good business. Yeah.
Good business. So we thanked them for the opportunity, but that did leave this big void. And what that did to me is it made me think, I don't want to be in this situation again. So how do we diversify our position and actually dilute the clients that we've got? And acquisition was the thing that came to me in our workings or strategy.
Yeah.
So the idea is rather than be solely reliant on occupational health clients, which is where we were, we would add in these different healthcare verticals that would kind of cross-pollinate and work with one another.
So just explain a vertical for people who...
Our verticals are separate limited companies that work in synergy or in tandem
with complementary type services. But they're different enough to warrant being in their own place.
Exactly, yeah. So the first business we bought was another physiotherapy business. So complementary in that they used similar professionals, but a different specialism: occupational health, private physiotherapy. We then bought a medical supplies company, so we could supply our own clinics with world-class products.
Right.
We then bought a domiciliary care company, so we could help private individuals after sports injuries. We could help working age people who are in occupational health, and then we could help them after they retired. So we kind of followed it through, and we could supply them all with products.
That's good. One thing that strikes me there is there's a lot of advice at the moment to kind of like micro niche. If anything, you did the opposite. You expanded your range.
Yep.
Was that you obviously consciously did that? Did you think at any point though we should be doubling down on just the thing we're good at?
No, is a simple answer, and there's really easy. I get asked this question all the time,
Yeah.
and I think it comes down to mindset, because we get asked similar questions. You've diversified, you've gone quite broad. How do you do that? But in my mind, it's all just healthcare. So all of our businesses are designed to keep people healthy, happy, and provide an amazing service.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if we're selling a stethoscope to a doctor so they can take care of someone in hospital, or whether we're looking after someone in their own home, or whether we're providing hormone replacement therapy to keep a man at his absolute best.
Yeah.
His optimal self. It's all just about healthcare.
Yeah. And also by having them in separate entities or separate companies, separate structures, each one can still niche, can't it?
Exactly.
So your medical supplies isn't worried about finding sports injury patients.
Quite right.
So you've cleverly found a way to complement each other without taking away the focus of each of the businesses.
Yeah, they all operate underneath their own brand. They all have their own teams in place, but there's this ability to cross-sell, and the senior team work together in order to look for those synergies where they can actually benefit one another.
And you've kind of said what your background was. I presume you don't put your hands on people very often now.
I know it was about 5 years ago, I think, was the last time.
Last time you bent a leg round someone's neck or anything like that?
I was doing about a day a week at the time, and I thought I'm always going to treat people because that's what I do.
Well, this is why I'm here.
This is who I am, exactly.
Yeah.
And I came home from work one day and my wife said, how was your day? I said, I've not been the best physio I could be today. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, I had half a thought, on the contract that we just offered and the SPA we were just about to sign. And at that moment I thought, well, my patient probably didn't realise, but I knew. And I knew that was
so you were
time to step
working
back.
on and in the business at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Which of course is what most small business owners have to do that. They're also worrying about the marketing campaign and did they get the accounts done, and I've got an HR thing to sort out, and I've got to recruit, and the signs fell off the front of the shop, and
exactly.
It's quite hard when you realise that there are. I mean, we did a webinar on this years ago, but called the 10 hats. There are 10 completely distinguishable things that all need to be done.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. You were self-aware enough to kind of go, You could have done better if you weren't also doing that.
Exactly, yeah. Wearing those hats, as you say. And part of what led to acquisition, you mentioned self-awareness there. I've been really heavily sort of involved in the self-development side of things for a long time. So I realised years ago that I could be the best physio in the world, but unless I had a really good understanding of myself, plus marketing and business, we would stagnate. So it was that self-development that kind of led to business growth, which led to the thought that actually acquisition can work even for smaller companies. It's not just for the PLCs.
So we'd kind of roughly broken this down into a couple of different sections. Then identifying the need. You've talked to us a little bit about how you realised that this was a good thing or the thing for you. How do you then go about finding the target then, Ross? Because just because someone does a similar thing around the corner doesn't mean they're the right. Take us through that process.
Yeah, 100%. So there are lots of ways you can find a business. So some of the ones that worked for us, Google, who near me does what I do, and literally ask them. Yeah. And actually,
because if they've had a bad day, they're more likely to say yes that day.
100%. Yeah. And actually, there's loads of research to show that the average age to start thinking about retirement is 57. So we actually look for businesses.
Profile.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn would be great for that.
LinkedIn
Find
works.
anyone on LinkedIn with a business doing yours where they look like they're getting on.
100%. Yeah. And actually,
that doesn't sound sophisticated, but
you can drill down into it a bit more if you use Sales Navigator.
Yeah.
So you
can
in
geography
target.
and all kinds, can't it?
Yeah. So that works really well. So 57 and up, that's a big tick. Less than 3 shareholders, good tick.
Yeah, because they've got succession issues.
But also it's hard enough sometimes getting 2 people to agree, let alone getting 10.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. It's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah. So
we have trouble getting 2 kids to watch the same film. Never mind. Yeah.
100%. So we kind of look for these things. So you can find that on Google. LinkedIn's really good. There's a lot of business brokers out there that will sell businesses on behalf of people. So they're quite a good source of information. Although our experience is it's a little like buying a house. The estate agent will often tell you your house is worth more to get the deal. And this
so you'd rather buy direct from the homeowner without the agent if you can?
If we can.
Yeah.
Although what we have found over the years is often we'll have conversations with business owners via a broker. Our advisors will then value it. They say, oh my goodness, that's so different than what our broker said. So, well, this is what we've been advised.
Yeah.
A year later, they come back.
They'll hawk it around the market. Yeah, we had a client buying a local competitor. It's quite interesting because they called us unprofessional, said we'd insulted them and all kinds, and then a year later they sold it for basically what we'd offered.
Right. Which
was really interesting. That's not Robson Laidler, that's one of our clients. And I didn't take any pleasure from it, but I do kind of think, well, it's a shame you'd been led down the wrong path because you could have got out when you wanted to that year earlier.
Yeah.
And you would have got the same money.
Exactly. Without all that stress and headache. So that is definitely a way in which we look for other businesses, but the mindset, again, if we keep going back to sort of mindset, how it works, we take a very long-term view. Like, this conversation probably won't result in an acquisition now.
But we don't need to buy something tomorrow. Because the person who spoke to a year ago, they're getting sick of not selling.
Yeah.
You mentioned, obviously, what you do then, you've talked about how you go out and find people. Do people come to you? Do you just put out there that, well, looking?
Yeah. Absolutely, and LinkedIn there works really well. So we get approached most weeks with businesses saying, "Can you help me grow? Can you help me exit?" And one of the things we also do is we help other business owners to acquire businesses as well.
Yeah,
which I'm quite passionate about, just empowering other business owners.
Because there's a whole load of things to consider, isn't there? That you've got to understand all of the things that are going to happen, and it's not just, we've signed the share transfer, signed the agreement, we own a business now. There's a whole load of issues, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it's probably worth moving on if that's okay then. So, and we might still be in kind of still talking about the target a little bit here, but the purchase, let's say that's the next thing. Let's say you found the perfect target, you've agreed the price, you've got the structure of the deal, the purchase, then what happens next?
So after you have the rough structure, you'll generally sign your heads of terms, which is that outline contract where you're saying we agree to do X, Y, and Z. Typically, they agree then to enter into 3 months exclusivity, so they won't agree to sell it to somebody else. And you go into your due diligence period.
And that's where you're checking their books, making sure their insurances were valid, no outstanding claims.
100%,
that type of thing. Which is critical, isn't it? It's critical.
Yeah, skeletons in the closet.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And actually,
are there more skeletons in the medical world in closets?
Well, it's really funny because I chatted to someone the other day. You didn't find an actual
skeleton, surely?
No. A friend of mine bought a medical business, and he actually found the previous owner's dad's ashes in a cupboard. So it's very similar to a skeleton in the closet.
Well, there was bone material in there, I'm sure. Yeah, wow. Right, okay.
Yeah, so aside from the jokes about skeletons, you do obviously in that period have to do all your financial due diligence, all the legal due diligence to make sure you're buying what you think you're buying.
And again, this is an area where we see people go, oh, we've agreed, and it might be 20 grand, it might be 2 million, it doesn't matter. We've agreed this for the business, right? Okay. When you say agreed, what does that mean? Because there's a lot of different things you need to put in place here. It's not like a fixed price and that's the end of it, is it?
No, so it's agreed in principle. So you say, if everything is as we think it is, this is the price. However, if this happens, it can change. So a great example would be if you find, let's say you were buying it for £20 and all of a sudden you found they owed the HMRC £10, obviously your price
which they hid, it wasn't on the balance sheet. You don't want to buy that, do you? You don't want to buy a debt that's bigger than you thought. Yeah.
Exactly. So that would then come off your price. So this is all sort of negotiated during that heads of terms piece, before you then move to the share purchase or asset purchase, depending on what you're doing. Which
again, I suppose that's worth talking about, because as a seller, so I'm a tax advisor, we advise people on the sale of either what's called the trade and assets, or the company, or the partnership, or whatever it is, the goodwill. And the tax implications are quite different for the seller, but also it makes a difference to the buyer as well, doesn't it?
Definitely.
You might have a company where, they've got some downstairs, they might have 3 shop fronts on a high street and got, flats above. You might not want the flats. So buying the company, you'll get everything that's in there, but you might not want everything.
Yeah.
And that's part of that process as well, isn't it?
Definitely. And as you say, very different tax implications. So most owners will 100% want a share purchase, so they can use the entrepreneur's tax relief.
But they'll want to sell the whole company, the shares with everything in it. Yeah.
Exactly. We're most tax efficient for them. Whereas we might want to do an asset purchase, depending on what liabilities they have.
Because you only want certain bits.
Yeah.
Or they might have excess cash in the company that you don't want to buy just because it's there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was explained to me once really simply. If you imagine a box, which is the business, if you have a shoe box, the lid's on and you do a share purchase, you buy everything including the contents of the box.
So the box, the lid and everything inside.
Exactly. In the asset purchase, you take the top off and you just take the bits out that you want.
I think that I might use, can I use that? Is that right? Okay. Because also I think you can extend that analogy to the due diligence. It looks like a box, but I'm thinking only fools and horses here. In that bag, is there a video recorder or is there a couple of bricks?
Yeah.
Well, until you take the lid off the box and look at it, you don't know what's in there, do you? And you need to check is right at the bottom of the box in every corner.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we've identified, we want to grow. We think if we did what they do, that would work. We can either market our way there and grow, or we could just buy them. That's it's kind of what we've talked about. We've worked out which people we want to buy. We've talked about courting them. It takes a while. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. Agents can help, and I'm sure you do find businesses through agents and go, yeah, it's actually the right value and the right people, great.
Yeah.
We've talked about the purchase, but it feels to me like almost the biggest part of this is the integration on the back end, because all of those other things are complex, but the integration is the thing that will determine whether it all works or not.
Yeah.
You can get over whether you've overpaid or underpaid. You can trade your way out of that, hopefully.
Yeah.
As long as it wasn't a million miles out.
Yeah.
But if you completely mess the integration, all of your good work falls, doesn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's easier to buy the business than it is then to run it. And choosing whether you're going to integrate it or keep it in its own silo is really important. But then also how you integrate, how you present yourself to the new team is super important.
Yeah.
So the first business we acquired was a really great learning experience, because the departing owners didn't tell any of the team. So on day one, they just said, there you go, these guys are now your boss.
Well, so you turned up and they went, here are the keys, this is your new boss.
Yeah.
I bet that was fun.
It caused a lot of instability, as
I mean, yeah, so I'm conscious I don't want to disturb the flow here, but for all they knew, there was people in there who saw themselves as the buyer.
Potentially.
Who were never asked.
Yeah, they were never asked.
Well, they're never going to give their all to you, are they?
Well, they
think,
felt...
well, hold on, I thought I was being groomed to buy this place.
They felt betrayed.
Yeah, of course.
Actually. So that
not trusted.
Yeah. So that took a lot to unravel. And we lost a couple of people quite early on, because they were just like,
imagine, yeah.
I've worked here for 20 years, I can't believe you didn't tell me. So that was really important.
I was round his house yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that.
Because a lot of small business owners are actually normally quite pally with a couple of people who work there.
100%. Yeah.
Wow, right, okay then.
So that was a big lesson. So now we really encourage the businesses that we're looking at to engage with at least their senior team, and we encourage them to actually meet us before, so they know who they're going to be working with.
Yeah.
And it's actually part of the process.
Do you have trouble persuading sellers to do that? Because they might have concerns, well, what if our suppliers, customers, what if all of these people find out and it doesn't go ahead, we're weaker now somehow than we were.
Definitely, I haven't found an exact formula that makes this work, but at the right time, once everything's pretty much signed, we'll then meet people and sort of cement that relationship, that new relationship.
And there's a way to do that as well. You wouldn't just pop in and go, "Oh, hi there, Ross. I'm thinking about buying this place. Do you mind if I just poke around?"
Yeah.
To the receptionist who's never heard anything. Yeah, you got to do that the right way.
Yeah.
I presume as part of your due diligence as well, then, because we talked about the targeting and doing the looking in the box. Part of that is the seller. They have to be someone who you think was running a similar kind of business, with similar mindset, similar goals, values, who will work with you the way you want to work.
Yeah.
And I presume you'd walked away from a lot of deals, which might have worked, but you just weren't getting there with the seller.
Yeah. I'm firmly of the opinion that no small business has ever been sold without trust and rapport there. So if they don't like me, they're not going to sell me the business.
Not for full value anyway.
Yeah, maybe perhaps.
Because you might say, well, they wanted 100 grand, but we've agreed 20. I'm not going to look in the box, and they took a punt. But that's not really a solid way to run your business, is it?
No, definitely not. So the first meeting for me, actually, I never have an agenda. It's just an intention to find out whether we get on, because we need to be working closely afterwards, in the change piece. And actually, if that first meeting doesn't go very well for either one of us, we just agree to discontinue any further conversations.
And you mentioned the change piece. Now, obviously, you're getting to know them during. You then have the purchase. It's happened. What role does the old owner play in the ongoing business going forward? It's quite normal to say, well, can you stick around for 6 months, 12 months, depending on how much was reliant on them.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that change management, that navigation, really comes down to the complexities of the business. But the purpose of that handover is to get all the knowledge out of their head that perhaps isn't written down.
Yeah.
The relationships with suppliers and clients, and hand that over in a smooth fashion. Often it will be part of the departing owner's responsibility to help onboard their replacement, or just to introduce us to the right people, the key players, the stakeholders in their business.
Well, I've got 3 suppliers, you must keep them happy. I'll get you straight in, we'll explain, I'll let them know I'm still going to be here. If anything goes, and that's quite important, isn't it?
Hugely important, because in small businesses, a lot of it is relationship.
It is relationship, isn't it? Yeah. And you mentioned, well, 2 interesting things there then. So at what size would you say that it isn't relationship based? Because if I was buying, I don't know, Microsoft, I don't know why I said Microsoft, but most customers don't deal with anyone of any note at Microsoft, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they probably don't even know who runs it. They don't know how many management there are there. So is there a point at which... does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually that's reflected in the value of a company.
Yeah.
See, it's more valuable if it's less reliant on one person or one client, which kind of goes back to how we got into this in the first place.
Yeah, well, this is my follow-up question, which I'll just get out there because the answer's probably going to stray across both. But if you saw a business where the person was great, the target place, the thing they did, everything was absolutely perfect, but they had basically no internal systems or processes, would you still go, okay, we'll do it? Or do you rely on there being an element of procedural, tidiness?
Yeah, good question. And it would depend on our existing businesses. So if that was a new standalone business, bearing in mind we're focused on healthcare.
So if you went into a 5th sector?
Yeah, a 5th sector that had no processes in place, we'd stay well clear.
Because you haven't got the experience to bring your processes in. You haven't got anything you can implement.
Yeah, but if we were already in that sector and they had great clients, or it was a brilliant geographic location, and we had what they needed to run successfully, we could potentially just bolt that in, and it would run fairly seamlessly, I would like to think.
Because all you've got then is the people just need to learn the new system. They're used to systems, but they're used to doing things well professionally, but they just need to learn a system.
Exactly.
Because the more change, that you bring in and the quicker you bring, I would imagine that is one of the things that can disrupt the integration, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. Which then kind of brings us on to the other part of your question, which is, you know, where do you find there is less reliance? And typically in the businesses we're looking at, once a business reaches sort of $750,000, $1 million in revenue, they've generally got a second tier management, they've generally got some processes in place.
Yeah.
Which makes it
because
easy.
you can't run that size business.
It's hard, isn't it? If it
From
was
your
all
phone.
in your head.
Yeah, you can't run it from your phone, can you?
Yeah.
Okay then. And you mentioned, and this is a thing that I think a lot of people don't realise as well, I'm pretty sure there's been published evidence that if the business owner or the senior ownership of a business knows the name of their customers, the business is less valuable. And people, well, that doesn't make any sense. I thought people do buy from people. But if it's you and you go and you take those relationships, that diminishes your value, doesn't it?
100%, yeah. So one of the most powerful things someone can do.
Do you mean absolutely? Not by 100%? So, yeah, like, you know the name of any of your customers, it's worthless.
It's worthless.
It's 100% discount.
You were dead right in that that assumption. Yeah, that would be great though.
We'll value accuracy on this podcast, Ross. We don't make sweeping statements ever.
Yeah, it's a zero valuation. But one of the most powerful things you can do to maximise the value of your company is extricate yourself as the owner. So if it's not relying on you, that is a real powerful driver when you're looking at valuation.
I mean, you can tell if a business is ready for sale if you can not go in for a month and it doesn't blow up and fall down.
Exactly.
Then you've gone far enough, haven't you? Because you need it. So when you're working, if you've got business on your mind, you're working on the strategy, the direction. That's if you're at that point and you're not hands-on, you're not emptying the warehouse, you're not, servicing the forklift or whatever it is, then the new team is going to take over that strategy bit. You don't want to come in and start doing your job, do they?
Yeah.
Because you're not looking to buy a job, are you? You're buying a business.
Yeah.
So you've got to think, what are you selling? Are you selling a job or selling a business?
Exactly. But a business should be an asset.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy a job. You want something that actually boosts what you're trying to achieve in your main business.
Yeah. Ross, we normally at this stage, I think we're probably about half an hour in now. We normally, I say that we finish by asking you one question, but normally starts with a conversation point. What's the biggest mistake people make in this area, or what's the easiest thing for people to change if they don't go on this road?
The biggest mistake is they don't think they can do it. They don't think it's appropriate for a small business.
It's interesting. So they're not making a mistake in doing it. It's the choice not to consider it. That's the biggest mistake.
Definitely. People think, and I know because I was there, I was the small business owner, or the accidental business owner that started a business because of passion. It grew, but I never considered acquisition was a way to grow. And actually, it does happen in small businesses. You can get scale and grow. It doesn't have to be just for large companies.
How do you find, because there might be people saying, well, that was all right, Ross, but you said you had 30 people. That's small, but it's 30 bigger than me.
Yeah.
And they might, but if you had 30 people, you must have been doing all right. You must have been making money. You said we were doing all right. So you got the finance much easier. I mean, it's worth saying here that you need to find some money to do this, don't you?
You do.
Obviously, you can borrow money.
Exactly. Yeah, so kind of do.
This isn't a zero cost thing, though, is it?
It could be. So, for instance, a great example of that would be a merger. In a merger, two companies come together, and zero money changes hands.
If the combined is worth more than the.
Yeah, so 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, it equals 5, because you've got the
if you get it right. If you get it wrong, it's 3. But
right. But that's a great example how it doesn't cost money.
Merger, doesn't it? You may have still got to look in the box, you've still got to do all of the same things.
Yeah.
And it's even more important that you get along because you're going into business with the owner.
Yeah.
Not transitioning them out.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing to consider, because people do often discount it because of the finances involved, if you think about buying a house, you don't have to have 100% of your money because there's things called mortgages. Now, when you buy a business, it's different again because you don't need all of the money on day one. Typically people wouldn't expect that. It might be 50 or 70% on day one. So now your mortgage or your facility is actually you need even less to get it over the line.
And yeah, so I think there's two bits to kind of break down there. Then, so someone might say, I want half the money up front, and I want a quarter of the money in a year if it's still going all right, and a quarter a year later.
Yep.
So straight off, you've actually got 24 months to find the money. It's worth bearing in mind that if you're buying a successful business, it hopefully generates the money for the second and third payment.
Exactly.
It may not, but it certainly goes towards.
Yeah.
That's the plan. And even on the 50% you have to find to put down, you don't have to have all of that as cash. The bank will normally say, well, if you put, a third of that down or 20% or whatever, then we'll give you the balance.
Yeah.
A bit like you would a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're only mortgaging against the first payment, aren't you, on a business?
Yeah, so your deposit actually is much smaller than you might imagine.
Yeah.
So, you might be able to buy a business doing, 7 figures or 8 figures, and actually the deposit you need is a lot smaller than you might think.
Yeah. Great. Well, Ross, that's been fantastic. Thank you very much. And we really do appreciate you making the time to come in.
Oh, loved it.
I hope you all enjoyed that. Ross will be tagged within the comments and in the post, so reach out. I'm sure he'll happily expand. And he's always looking for good businesses in the medical sector, so
yeah,
there you go. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thanks, Martin.